Zombies and bleach. Never did I think I would say these two words within the same sentence, but to be honest, nothing surprises me when it comes to the 1000-year Blood War arc. I couldn't have been more grateful for Kubo having introduced zombies into the Bleach universe. The individual who makes this all possible is a Sternritter called Giselle Gewelle, or in other words, Sternritter Z for the zombie. She possesses a very interesting and deadly, no pun intended, power that in all honesty could have turned the tide of the war towards the Quincy's favor if proper care wasn't taken. Giselle's power was very threatening, and in this video we'll be delving into the very nature of her ability, the rules that it functions by, and how it was implemented within the 1000-year Blood War arc, as well as speculating on just how her ability works. Before the video begins, only 12% of the people who watch my content are subscribed to the channel. If you enjoy these videos, then subscribe and stick around for more content just like this. Now let's get back to the topic of the video. The first actual time that we see Giselle's zombification power in effect is within chapter 580, after Kenpachi Zaraki defeats Gremi, and he is assaulted by the Bambis, who just so happen to be Candice, Meninas, Lil Toto, and Giselle. They pretty much gang up on Kenpachi in order to kill him while he is in a weakened state. The reason for doing so was to eliminate one of the biggest threats on the battlefield, and it's when they gang up on Kenpachi where we get to see all of the Bambi's abilities being showcased. They all use their respective shrifts to either attack Kenpachi like Candice and Meninas did, or use them to prevent other Shinigami from coming to Kenpachi's rescue like Lil Toto and Giselle had done. And this in fact is the first time when we see Giselle's zombie shrift in action. She intentionally draws the attention of a group of unseated Shinigami through the use of reverse psychology, as she tells them to leave her and to go help Kenpachi, as nothing good would come from killing her. They in response decide to kill her before going on to rescue Kenpachi, believing that she tried to kill them with whatever mysterious power that she possesses. They were unaware that by deciding to kill her, they had inadvertently sealed their own fate. One of the Shinigami had slashed her, wounding her in a manner that would be fatal to most other characters within Bleach. But surprisingly, she remains standing and even mockingly addresses the fact that some of the massive amounts of blood splurting out of her wounds had splashed onto some of the Shinigami. Now it's here when they notice that they cannot feel their limbs, and their skin begins to darken. In an overly excited manner, Giselle explains that whoever is covered in her blood essentially becomes her puppet, after which she forcibly controls the Shinigami into slitting their own throats. This is the first time that we see this power in action, and we can deduce that it's an ability that uses Giselle's blood to completely take over an opponent's body. This turns them into zombies that she has absolute control over. Now at face value, it seems to have similar effects to other controlling abilities like Zomari's Amour, which we see in chapter 300, with the main difference being Zomari's Amour only takes full control of the body if his markings hit the head of his target, while the zombie on the other hand takes full control of the target if her blood makes contact with her opponent's skin. While it's yet to be proven whether if her blood just touching her target's clothing is enough for her ability to take effect, because unlike Zomari's Amour ability, which functions in a very straightforward manner, it seems that there are variations of Giselle's zombie shrift ability that we see later on within the manga. The next time that we see the zombie being showcased is within chapter 588, where Ikkaku and Yumichika have cornered Giselle, and they are considering to attack her. She tries to goad them into slashing her, but Yumichika realizes that it's very likely that they were being baited into a trap, as he also warns Ikkaku about her true motives. He even accurately guesses that coming into contact with her blood is the real danger of facing off against her. Giselle realizes that her attempt at baiting them has failed, and she summons to her aid one of her new zombies. Now this is revealed to be none other than her fellow Sternritter and former friend, if you can kind of class her as that, Bambietta Bastarbine, who has just been defeated by Seijin Komamura. She then reveals that in order to turn Bambi into one of her zombies, she had to kill her herself before being able to turn her. Now this new information about the ability raises a couple of questions. I've always wondered if this restriction exists due to an order from Yhwach, since it might have been wrong for her to enslave her living comrades, and that she was only given permission to control the Sternritters who have already died as a way of maintaining their military power despite deaths having occurred. Now another theory that I have is in relation to how Yhwach absorbs all of the powers and knowledge of any Quincy and Shinigami who die in the battlefield. Maybe Yhwach had wanted to take back the fragment of the soul that he had given to the Quincy before allowing Giselle to turn Quincy into zombies. Maybe Yhwach had placed this restriction upon her power, and this is why it works a certain way only on Quincy and it's different on other individuals. It is pretty fun to speculate all of this, so let me know what you think is the correct answer within the comments about how her zombification ability works and how it differs between Quincy and other beings. Now this is also where we notice that her zombies are no different from conventional zombies, as Bambietta is far less intelligent and she has slurred speech which is considerably slower than when she was alive. This massive decline in physical and mental performance is outright stated in the Can't Fear Unwell light novels, and it's most definitely the reason why Ikkaku and Yumichika had done so well against the Sternritter. I mean, as great as these two characters are, I just don't see them performing that well at all against a full-powered Bambietta. Now both of them very quickly figure out how her ability to explode works, and they use a combination of Kido and Ikkaku skills in order to successfully cut her down. But this is where Giselle reveals another aspect of her zombie power, stating that her zombies can't really be killed as they've already died, meaning that slashing and stabbing attacks will have little to no effect on them. Ikkaku and Yumichika realize that they had left themselves open for attack, resulting in them being hit by Bambi's bombs and getting heavily wounded. Giselle walks towards them and explains that her power only works on dead Quincy, but this restriction does not apply for Shinigami, as she is able to control them while they are still alive. Now this explanation is perfectly consistent with what we have seen in her initial showcase of her power against the Shinigami that she had battled within chapter 580. She then bites off a nail and begins to bleed very heavily from her finger, and before any of us have an opportunity to ask just how her fingers can bleed like that, Mayuri arrives onto the battlefield just in time to save them. Now before going into Mayuri's battle against Giselle, we should first go over everything that we have learned during this encounter, and it's worth noting that by comparing the info that we gain from these first two encounters, we can determine a couple of similarities and differences with how her powers are used, as well as making a few other deductions. The first thing to note is that in both cases of her power being utilized, we notice her victims have a considerably lower intellect and physical mobility. They also seem to lose their personalities as they become completely subservient to her will. They also seem to retain full access to their powers in the state and can access them accordingly, as was shown with Bambietta's bombs and her holy form. But what's most interesting is how this ability doesn't completely rob its victims of their sentience, as we see Bambietta possesses some remnants of her personality, although it's heavily watered down, and it's solely dedicated to serving Giselle. We see this as the fight continues, and before we finally get a proper explanation of how this ability really works, Mayuri appears, and if you didn't know, during the second half of the 1000 Year Blood War arc, he is pretty much the undisputed MVP. He kicks off his role within the story by saving the wounded Ikkaku and Yumichika, and he banters a little bit with Giselle before a zombified Bambi steps up to protect her. She then begins to ask for Giselle's special something, and if you know, you know, but the zombified Bambi ends up being punched by her as Giselle promises her that she'll get a prize after the fight. I'm pretty certain that Kubo wanted us to think of this scene in a very explicit manner, but this scene actually does end up being relevant to learning a bit more about her zombification power, as we later come to learn that it was Giselle's blood that she had needed and not the other thing. This is also followed up later on in chapter 603, where it seems that when she reclaims her blood from her zombies, she can also heal herself, although this act appears to deactivate her zombie as they require her blood to remain alive. So yeah, just to clarify, it was Bambietta wanting her blood, not anything else, regardless of whatever Yumichika may try to convince you of. Getting back to the fight, Mayuri uses his Reishi locking devices to delay the detonation of Bambi's bombs, causing them to go off right in Giselle and Bambi's faces. Giselle is actually fine since she used Bambi as a meat shield, but Bambi is severely wounded and is even knocked unconscious. Now this implies that while stabbing and slashing attacks are ineffective, enough concussive force can actually incapacitate her zombies. Realizing that she has lost her most powerful weapon, Giselle summons even more zombies to come fight Mayuri. The number of zombies that are in her control shocks Ikkaku and Yumichika, with them even mentioning how many familiar faces that they can recognize among the zombies. Mayuri responds by summoning his own squad of zombies to fight for him, revealing the reanimated Pre-Verone Espada and Frascione, who unlike Giselle's zombies possess their full personalities and intellects, while also being able to fight just as well as they had done while they were still alive. Now with this factored in, it becomes rather clear that Giselle was at a massive disadvantage, as Mayuri's zombies would easily tear through her army of zombie Shinigami. We learn another key detail on how her zombification power works during this moment, as Dodoni, while killing the zombie Shinigami, tries his hardest to avoid being splashed by their blood in an attempt to avoid becoming one of Giselle's zombies, Luffy reassures him that it's very likely that the blood of her zombies doesn't spread the zombification ability, because Ikkaku had been splashed by Bambi's blood earlier in the fight and he is still normal. Now this means that it's only Giselle's blood that can spread the zombification, making her means of spreading it much less convenient than it might be for other control type powers that individuals like Zomari and Pranida possess. Now this means that the main challenge that she has in a fight is getting her blood onto her opponents. This is why she taunts her opponents into attacking her, which as we have seen she is pretty successful in doing. This means that she's figured out how to deal with the downsides that come with her zombie ability. She's been able to work past those weaknesses in order to reach her desired means, which is pretty impressive if you ask me. In chapter 592 we learn the final piece of information about her zombification ability. After her army of zombies and Bambi get easily defeated by the reanimated Arrancar, she actually reveals her trump card, and to everyone's surprise it's the now zombified Hitsugaya. This reveal makes Mairi realize that they are in serious danger as he orders his Arrancar army to retreat, as Hitsugaya joins the fight and turns the tide of the battle in favor of the Quincy, as he easily defeats the Arrancar Charlotte as well as both Ikkaku and Yumichika, which leads to Mairi himself stepping in to prevent Hitsugaya from killing Ikkaku and Yumichika. Mairi is able to deduce that Hitsugaya is moving just as well as he did while he was alive, but it's evident that he doesn't retain any of his personality or his sense of individuality. Giselle agrees with this assessment and explains that when she zombifies her targets, before they die they retain their physical mobility in exchange for their free will, which results in the creation of the perfect puppet, one that fights as though they are still alive while also being under her control. Now this was a very interesting implication, as it seems that the zombification ability is best suited for fighting Shinigami, and it only comes with multiple downsides when it's used on Quincy. And it's details like this that really make me wonder if Yhwach can actually influence the powers that the Quincy inherit when he gives them their shrifts, since this addition to restrict the zombification ability on Quincy alone feels very intentional. Now as the battle continues, Mairi succeeds in defeating the zombie Hitsugaya, and Giselle summons more of her zombies, revealing Rose, Kensei and Rangiku, who have also fallen victim to her power. Mairi uses the same drug that he had used to defeat Hitsugaya to take them out, and this is where he deduces that Giselle's power requires her blood reaching her target's brain in order to take full effect, and it's the strength of the individual that determines how much blood Giselle needs to use in order to control them. And this explains why Hitsugaya, Rose, Kensei and Rangiku all had a very dark red hue to their skin. Mairi finds a way to reverse this process by using the zombie's own untainted blood to simulate the same effect, as he essentially turns Giselle's zombies into his own. She ends up being defeated, and it's worth noting that we never really got to see Giselle's holy form in action, since we know that a Quincy's holy form elevates the powers of a Quincy's shrift, and I have no doubt that Giselle's powers would have been further amplified. Now while it's worth noting that she does appear within the Can't For Your Own World light novels, it doesn't really add anything new to all of the information that we have covered within this video. In conclusion, it was thanks to Mairi's resourcefulness and Yhwach's betrayal that the zombification ability doesn't devastate the Shinigami nowhere near as much as it should have. With Giselle still being alive, it'll be very interesting to see what her role will play in the future of Bleach's story. What do you think about her power that takes inspiration from the beloved zombie genre? Do you believe that her holy form would have amplified her power and added more to her moveset? Do you think Mairi has taken inspiration from her and he's working on more corpses and creating more zombies behind the scenes? I'd love to know your thoughts on her zombification ability, so definitely continue the discussion in the comments. And lastly, thank you for making it to the end of this video, and I cannot wait to see you in my next Bleach Explained video. If you enjoy my content, then you can support my channel through Patreon for as little as $1 a month, or even through YouTube by becoming a channel member. You will gain access to exclusive channel perks and a Discord server which I frequently use. So become a member of my Zero Division and be the first to know about my upcoming videos. And once again, thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.